Thank you again, Daryl Perry, CEO of Liberty Lobby LLC. And most of you may remember that I was here testifying against HB 1503 last year that amended this section of statute. And what wound up happening with that, it did not pass as a standalone measure. There were other things added to it that basically nobody was going to vote against. So we got stuck with HB 1503 being added to the statute. Now again, I refer to the report from the Dairy Monitor, the Dairy Election Monitor, not a newspaper titled the Dairy Monitor, where he says, in consultation with the election officials and the Secretary of State, it was concluded that the critical determinant of whether voters entering the building should be confronted and told to remove or cover up campaign logos such as a hat, t-shirt, lapel, etc., was whether or not it was being worn, quote, to influence the action of the voter, which is wording in the statute. He concluded if a voter is wearing it into the polling place, votes, and leaves, that voter should not be told, cover up your button, hat, shirt, etc. But if they stand inside the polling place and point very noticeably at their shirt, trying to influence the action of a voter, then that becomes an issue. But I agree with former Representative McGuire that 659, 1 and 2 definitely need to be rewritten and possibly reviewed altogether. But I do support HB 253, and I'll take any questions.
Questions from committee members. Representative Gay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What is your opinion about wearing a sweatshirt that has the candidate's picture on it rather large?
I have no problem with people wearing t-shirts or sweatshirts or buttons or lapels. And I don't know how detailed the minutes are from the hearing on 1503.
I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to get this in the minutes.
Flailing of arms. But you may recall, at least those of you that were on the committee last year, may recall that I specified other states that have similar legislation. They specify how large something must be. So, my lapel pin here of Bitcoin not bombs, could this be construed to support someone that is friendly towards Bitcoin? How large does something have to be? How small? And then a lot of this is very subjective. One person might think that it's intended to influence somebody else, and then somebody else looks at it and has no clue what the intent of the button is. So I think that for the sake of clarity and ease, strike the word wear, and I would also be good with striking the word article of clothing, although I guess someone could stand right outside of the marker that says no electioneering past this point, passing out t-shirts. So you could distribute articles of clothing, so I'm not going to necessarily take a position one way or the other on the word article of clothing. But striking the word wear is definitely something that needs to be done.
Thank you. Questions from committee members. Representative Harrington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would you also go along with the, trying to make this less ambiguous, intended to influence the action of the voter? Because that's obviously, it can be an argumented point. If we're going to ban these various things, just say, don't bring them in the building and leave them. If you want to wear a t-shirt, we don't care whether you're trying to influence somebody or not, you can go ahead and wear that. But you're not going to bring in cards, handbills, placards, et cetera, and leave it there. Do you think that that needs to be closed down so that it's just an absolute prohibition, or would we leave intended to influence the action of the voter, which is a subjective decision?
I think you do need to leave in intended to influence, because what happens if someone takes it, they've jotted down notes of this is how I want to vote, and they inadvertently leave it in the polling place. They intended to take it with them, throw it in the garbage can, but they accidentally left it. That's totally different than someone who walks in with a stack of palm cards and places one in each voting booth. So you need to have intent. Almost every other statute that creates a penalty, there is a requirement that there's an intent to violate. So if you remove intent, then, you know, somebody that is inadvertently leaving their note of vote for so-and-so would wind up being penalized, and I think you would just see an overflow of court cases, and it would clog the courts.
Thank you.
Now, if the intention is to clog up the courts, then go right
Moving
ahead.
on, other questions from representatives? Seeing none, thank you for your
Thank you.
testimony, Mr. Perry.
The